years, I download all the CPS statements, and they're all on the thumb drive. And so, like, anytime there's a kid with, like, sickle cell, I'll just search, like, sickle cell, and then you'll have, like, the 3 most pertinent, like, Peds Review Pediatrics, and if there's anything on CPS, and then you just print off that article, and then you read it, right? So I committed myself to every night on call, I read one journal. Like, sometimes you get slammed, you can't do it, but you just say, like, every night I'm gonna print off one article, and I'm gonna read it. So what do I want to read about tonight? Oh, there's a kid with whatever, I should read about that tonight. Oh, there's a kid with status, I should read that CPS statement. Oh, there's a kid with hypoglycemia. And on some of the rotations, you'll get, like, asked to do, like, a presentation. So in neonatology, I was asked to do a presentation, and they want it to be something, like, that's interesting to them. So it's kind of the poll, like, what should you do? And I remember, like, in my first year, I spent, like, 3 weeks doing, like, the Danny Walker malformation, all, like, the variants of it. And so, like, now I know all this stuff about it, but then, like, the first year I should have learned about, like, hypoglycemia, hyperbilirubinemia, and all those approaches. And so I think you'll get really interesting cases that the staff nerd out on, and they're like, this is really interesting. We also sometimes have to pull back and be like, okay, what's a general approach to CNS abnormalities?
I would definitely say the same thing.
You need to pull back and be like, what's the big picture thing I need to learn here?
And you can still kind of make it interesting to them with, like, a smaller part of it. Like, I was on hematology, oncology, and they are extremely smart people who really want to talk about something super nerdy and intense. And so I did approach to pediatric oncologic emergencies, and then within that talked about leukapheresis, and then went into some articles. But, like, really for me, being interested in acute care and ICU, that was what I wanted to learn about. And so definitely use those opportunities. Don't waste them on
very esoteric topics. And actually that's changed as well. Those who were at PRPC last time know that we changed the presentation guidelines so that the presentations have to be tailored to a general consultant pediatrician and not really way out there. So that'll help as well. But yeah, exactly what John said.
If you go on, like, if you just search, I don't even know what you search. You just search, like, Royal College objectives for the exam. They have a, like, massive list, and there's, like, I don't know, 400 objectives. So it's sometimes a good reminder, and I try to do it, and I think I've gotten more effective, is, like, at the start of rotation, you just look at all those objectives and say, like, this is what I really should be looking. Halfway through, you go through and, like, what have I not seen? Because you'll be like, oh my, I'm not, like, I've gone through neonatology, but I haven't seen any of the, like, congenital malformations, therefore I should focus on them. You're like, oh, I haven't seen enough of the bread and butter. So it's kind of a good reminder, because then you'll be like, oh wow, I've really been nerding out or pigeonholed in one really small area, and it just helps kind of balance what you're spending your time doing. So. And
people always say in R4, like, I'm sure you're feeling the same way now, is I wish I would have been studying these things the whole time this way, because you get to R4 and you're like, wow, that would have been super helpful if I had known some of those things on wards, like in this specific approach to something. So I think CPS statements, find your resources, and Royal College objectives, like check those before you start any kind of rotation, and then your time management during that course will be so much better.
How do you guys carry forward that knowledge? So you read the papers and you keep notes, and, like, I've done that too, but then 3 months later you're not going to remember. Like, do you have tricks other than making a cue card set, or on how to, like, keep that knowledge you're learning continually fresh versus, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
now
sort
that's
of
all I'm doing.
I find the only way that I really retain is if I teach it. And so if you have an opportunity where you are able to teach one of your peers or a medical student about that CPS statement, for me, I felt that sticks a lot more than if I read it a second
Make
time.
notes and then just like,
But then once those notes are there when you're actually studying for the exam, which is, for us in residency, we're learning the whole way, but the exam is what we need to retain this information for at the end. And obviously as you go forward, but you're not going to be able to keep every single CPS, like part of every CPS statement in your brain until you ace the exam. But I really think that just keeping the notes are going to be the most important thing, and then it's easy for you to go back to them after.
Having the notes, like, some people do cue cards. I like to write on the margins of CPS things, so I just, like, underline as I go and then write on the margins, and then it would be like, oh, a kid comes in with, I don't know, a UTI, wait, when do we do ultrasounds? And you totally forget, but then you just flip back to the paper and it's already underlined, you already have it written in the margins. And then that's what I'll do for, like, teaching on wards, right? Like, I'll say, like, what are the most high yield things, or what are the things that I've learned in the last 3 months that I haven't taught people about, and then I'll try to, like, teach on wards around those papers. So I'll just bring the paper and then, like, scan it the night before and then try to teach on it. Sometimes you're horrible at teaching about it and you're like, wow, I clearly don't understand this, and other times you really understand it, you get it. So
The best thing for your learning is just teaching every day onwards.
Yeah.
Just teach something
Yeah.
every single day.
And force yourself to get the routine of like every day I will teach someone
Yeah.
something.
Pick a time.
Yeah.
I recommend mornings.
It doesn't have to be a big topic either, like small little teaching,
Yeah,
like we
like
talked
15
about the other
minutes.
day, you know, like little snippets here and there are enough to refresh that knowledge. And I can't emphasize enough from a program director perspective, the importance of approaches too, okay? Because nobody comes with a label on their forehead. So a huge part of what you're going to be doing in pediatrics is all based on what you're seeing. So a cyanotic kid, a jaundiced kid, a kid with anemia, a kid with... So when you're doing your studying, although it's important to know about the subset and what's causing it in this area, if you frame it with the approach too, it gives you that skeleton, and then you can, or the branches of the tree, and then you can fill in the leaves kind of thing, right? With all of the specifics. But always that approach too is extremely important, and you'll find that not just for your exams, but also for life, because what walks through the door may be just a color cyanosis, or it may be, you know, a completely undifferentiated patient where they have a bunch of different symptoms. You have no clue what to do, and so you have to have an approach to that undifferentiated patient who have no clue what's going on, right? So, yeah. Awesome. Anything else you guys could share in terms of?
A couple things that I like to do post-call is, of course, like to eat, train your song, but I also get like some of my my card changes, stuff like that done post-call. So I'll
Post-call
sleep for a
days.
few hours, and then in the afternoon it's fairly mindless, you know, you go somewhere, you can kind of sleep in a dentist chair, you can in the waiting room of like a Canadian Tire, and then you can get your tires changed. And at least then that has accomplished something rather than, so.
And it's got to be things with appointments, because
If it's just like, we're gonna get up
it's just
and
like,
go
oh,
run
go
this
do
errand.
thing. There has to be an appointment associated.
What else?
I think just, yeah, like what I said at the beginning, like just being able to separate, like, I don't know, I think there's just waves and seasons. Like I'm really hard at just staying like monotone, always semi-productive. Like I have huge like peaks and troughs, and just realizing that like when you're on the upswing and you're productive, just like ride that out. Like I'm not bipolar, but but then like onwards when like stuff around life is getting bad, you're pulled in other, you know, like
Yeah, just
you know, like you just have to like
accept it.
buckle down and just be like, all I need to do is like survive, sleep, and do a good job on
Be
the
proud of
roads.
your
Like
dinner.
let's not like, you know, it's my whole life and be down on myself. And I think sometimes we like get really down on ourselves. We're like, well, I'm not productive, I'm procrastinating. Sometimes you just have to be like, well, that's just this week, and then you know, like when am I going to start turning this around? And then you just like set like, okay, this is when it's going to clear up. This is when I'm going to be on the upstroke again. So I think just having enough like key little ways to I don't know, try to bring it back up to, and I just think like not feeling guilty when you're relaxing, like being able to, like I try to have like a list of like what are 3 things I need to do today, and then once I've done those 3 things, I just like guilt-free enjoy the rest of the time. Sometimes it has to be like 10 things you have to do that day. Other days it's like it'll just be 1 thing. But it's nice coming home and then like I usually just come home and then you just like have this like mindless like maybe I'm on YouTube, maybe I'm cooking, maybe I'm just sitting there like what's just happened to me. But it's nice to be like I just need to reply to this 1 email I don't want to deal with. I need to read this 1 article, and then guess what? I have 2 hours to do whatever I want, and it's just so relaxing to like just have those 2 hours of like I've actually done this stuff. So I don't know.
I use weird times to do things too. I don't know what you guys, but I do Adventist surveys when I blow dry my hair in the morning. Otherwise, I had this thing in first where I had 4 pages of Adventist surveys, and I was like, I can't handle this.
During
and then I have to
hockey
answer
games.
them all at once before my vineyard meeting with Dr. Doyle. And then I don't remember anything that I'm evaluating, and everyone just gets a solid 3 or 4 across the board. But now I just do them in the morning, so when I'm up for wards at 5:30 and I'm showering, I just open them and I literally, my hair takes forever to dry. So I just answer Adventist surveys. Like it's, I don't know, I'm trying to use that time so I can do it later and or think about it later.
That's what I was just saying.
You do like 1 layer, then put it down, and next layer, I don't know. Work for me.
Do you guys find that there's like certain things that because either you don't like or you're just not the best at, you just like push that one thing?
Yeah,
Again and again. There's a constant list of other things to do. How do you like force yourself? to
Well,
do anything?
that's what I was talking about with like my organized to-do list. Because if I get rid of those things on the other to-do list, I'm left with the important things that I have to do on my, like, procrastinating is honest, like, it will get you these years because there are always a million other things to do. And so sometimes you have to put, like, also a time on it. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had like a whole bunch of presentations and everything was coming up one after another. And so I just had to be like, this time, I know I'm going to be done at this time, this day. You're not going home. You have an hour where you're going to sit down and do this thing. Like, you just have to put a timestamp on it. Like, I have to be done it by this time. Or
Yeah,
else you're
some
just
person
gonna-
said like a project always takes the amount of time you designate for it.
Yeah.
So if you say I'm going to do this presentation over the next 2 weeks, you're going to spend 2 weeks on it. Or if you say like I'm going to spend this weekend doing this presentation, you'll take a weekend. And so
Yeah.
I think setting appropriate, like it's inappropriate to say you can do a presentation in one night, but it's also inappropriate to work on it for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to just pick an appropriate amount of time.
I hate finding, sorry, John.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go.
I hate finding articles for Journal Club or finding an
Oh,
article
yeah,
for something.
yeah.
I hate it so much. I don't know why I hate it so much, but I do. If I say, like, tonight, what I'm going to do is find an article for Journal Club, I will take the whole
Oh, yeah.
entire night to find an article. But if I say, you have the next, like, hour or whatever while you're doing something else, you have to find an article, then I will find it. And that's what I did last night, and I found it. You just have to, like, give yourself that limited period of time to do it.
The dreaded thing I hate is emails. I cannot stand doing emails. It's probably the worst thing that has ever happened to me.
So what's your strategy?
So my strategy is my phone is the triage center. So as I get emails, triage center. No, so as I get emails, I triage them. So I'll just star them if I need to deal with them. If there are things that are just like, yeah, sure, sounds good, I deal with them right away. But if there's anything that like needs to go in my calendar, I can't do it right away, then I star them. And then I try to do 2 times a week, but sometimes just once a week, where you just like buckle down and that's your email night, where you have to go through all those stupid flags, and it's horrid, like it's bad, but like it's just nice knowing that you have that one night that like then you don't have to feel guilty about it the other night. So you just say, you know what, like I'm gonna push this off. Monday's my email nights, and I mean sometimes you do have to get back faster than like once a week, and I agree with that. But there is a lot of things where you're just like, oh, I need to put that in my calendar, or I need to remind of that, or like you're just setting. This is the one night where I'm going to do the thing I don't like doing.
The one thing that I've learned over residency is when you get an email with a date for something in your calendar immediately.
Yeah.
If you do that, it will save you so many problems
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah.
Just put it in your calendar right away, and then it just makes your life so much easier.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I like to do my emails much, to put them in a specific place, but I do mine morning and evening. So when I get up first thing in the morning, I'll do it. When I go to bed at night, I'll do it. Unless there's something more important during the day. And if I'm off for the weekend and I'm spending time with my family, you can count on that I probably won't answer it until Monday. So that I, do protect my time, but at the same time recognize that, you have to check it. Everybody has different strategies. Some people do it once a day. Some people
Yeah, that's the difference between a program director 2 times a day versus an email 2 times a week. Level of commitment is like.
You're saying yup though, Haley.
Yeah, you have to also see, what you're doing, what your job is, eventually you guys will all find something that works for you. Now, what about your most productive times of day? Like, everybody's different that way. Do you guys have morning for you?
Obviously, morning
Yeah?
person.
Yeah? Will?
Yeah.
I'm more so a night person
Night
right
person?
after dinner for like a few hours.
Okay,
That's like
you, Shannon?
Morning.
Morning?
Yeah, I can't get up to do anything besides get up a burning house maybe, but I don't know, half an hour after dinner or half an hour after getting home from work. Like I just
Yeah.
need that half hour to not do anything, and then after that, that's when it's still time.
Yeah, we had a resident who was in our program last year who found mornings particularly good for her, and she was an early riser and could not study in the evening. Like, it was very hard to study when she got back from clinical service or whatever. So she would set her alarm for 4 in the morning, and she would study from 4 until she went into work, and then do her day. And then when she came home at night, there was no more at that. But that because she identified that was her most productive time of day. So we've had a couple of residents like that, and that's great. I mean, that's where it comes to taking stock and deciding what's your most productive time of day. And you decide. Everybody's different, right? So
It
yeah.
also depends on what you're going home to, like, do with
For
family
sure.
or something.
Exactly.
Stuff at home, or are you more flexible and don't have other commitments that you can pick and
Exactly.
choose your time?
I had one of my children in residency. So what I would do is I would come home after doing service or what have you, spend time with my son and my husband, put my son to bed around 8 o'clock, and then I would study till midnight. Now, this was in my final year, so prepping for exams, so, the need to stay up and keep on top of things, so probably studying longer than you would a little earlier on in residency, but it worked very, very well because I got that time, I got that downtime, plus I got time with my child and my husband, and then study, and then back to it, right? So again, yeah, it does matter what you're going to pursue, right?
I guess a challenge I have for myself is I historically was most productive later in the evening and or very late, which doesn't work when you are working at 7 in the morning. Like it just physically doesn't, at some point you can't do that anymore.
Right.
But then when you try to switch your productive time, like I've always been someone who can get up in the morning if I have an activity, but to get up for myself, that is something I find. But like, how do you, I don't know, it's one thing to identify, but if your time falls at a time, like some people it's like mid-afternoon, which normally you're working, so like you might be really good at your job for 3 hours, but like, when do you
What, is it something that made that time super productive? Just like your body said, I'm ready to work.
So is it only on things like where you're getting really like wards? I see. Like, is that the only rotations where you feel that
I'd say, like, I can get up to do activities, but to study, like, learn, I've always been in night.
So I don't know, my view would be that if it's those rotations that are really early mornings and therefore you're going to bed earlier, you're probably not doing, at least I'm not doing like
your most productive.
my most productive things on those ones anyways. So I think I'm just more gentler on myself and just decide I'm going to sleep for 12
That's
hours.
really important to be good to yourself and recognize, when it's not.
Funny because like I used to be the person who would stay up and sleep in because it is very hard for me to get out of bed in the morning unless I have like something I have to be at or
someone's
like
expecting you.
a commitment.
Then you're there.
But when I'm awake in the morning, I am productive. Like it's productive time if I can actually get myself out of bed. But getting out of bed is so hard. So I don't know. That's my kind of.
But I think it's really good that you identified that.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
That's the first step. And so it's a lot of trial and error in terms of what we're studying time. So sometimes it may be for a week I'm going to try to call myself out of bed at like 6 and see. And if that doesn't work,
I can haul myself out of bed at 5 o'clock to go to skating practice. But to get up to study is like
and utilize each other too. If like someone in your group is like, hey, I'm kind of like a morning person, and if you need to try to haul yourself out of bed, maybe see if you can join them for a couple hours. That's now a commitment or an appointment or something.
And share resources. Like if somebody comes up with a really great way of sort of organizing, a topic or something like that, saying, hey, look what I've done, and share with your peers, and you can take advantage of everybody's best achievements from that perspective, from organization, right? Like share it.
Do you guys all study at home, or do you do stuff like in the library?
I've lately been studying at the library a little bit because I'm finished development quite early in the afternoon these days. And if I go home, I won't study, so I've been studying at the library. But in the evening, it's kind of hard because I think after your day, you should take a little bit of time for yourself. I think it's really hard to just keep going. And so it's hard to go home and then go back out to do something else. So usually in the evening, I study at home. You just try to create an environment that's good for where you are to study. But I have been kind of mixing it up. I find that if I move locations, it's better for me to study. I can't stay somewhere for a really long time.
I have a spot in my condo that I study best in everywhere else.
Whatever.
It sounds a little OCD, but like it literally is like the third chair from. But like, yeah, if I'm there, great. If I'm everywhere else in the place, then it's like there's a distraction. Yeah, it's just like.
Tap the chair 3 times.
The pencil needs to be exactly before I'm able to pick it up.
I'm a home studier, but that's because you will find me in my pajamas and slippers and like a hoodie on, and I'm just cozied up. That's just me.
So how about you, John?
Yeah, I was at home. I think like with each season, like don't know, everyone has it, like high school to university, they have to kind of revamp the way they study, and then university and med school, like I totally got rocked on my first test in med school, and you just have to revamp. So I think like now is a good time to reevaluate and be like, what are the things that are effective and what are the things that are not effective? And so yeah, for me, it's at home. I have a specific room in our house, and like, that's where I study. Don't study.
3 monitors, 3 computer monitors.
And then like my phone, like when I study, my
It's all
phone goes in a
printed
different room. Like I'll study, my phone goes away in a different room, and then I play Spotify, and that's my like way to keep just.
That's a really good thing to mention because it's so easy to have that phone that's going bleep, bleep, bleep every 2 seconds.
You just pick it up mindlessly and just like
so
check
just
your email
get rid of
again,
the
check-
phone.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere else. If you want to be productive, put it somewhere else.
I even started
It's
to.
not useful at all, and you just pick it up and look at it anyway.
Where's your clock?
We just moved to this, our new place, and like we have a rule, like my wife and I have a rule that there's no phones allowed in our bedroom or in this one other room, and it's amazing. Like it's amazing going to sleep with not having
Quality
like
time.
you just feel like you're not addicted to your phone. So that's a lifestyle thing.
I have this app called The Forest,
Yeah.
and you're like actually planting a tree, so you can track your progress and how much you're studying. So if you set
Whoa.
your time to 1 hour and a particular tree, and it's like 15 minutes and it's a particular tree, but as soon as you click away from that app, then your tree dies and you get sad for a little bit. But it was a good way when I was like studying for the what were we saying? SCCQE.
Like I'm getting 4 trees.
Forest, and then now it's just plain.
Whatever
It's called
works, right?
Forest, and it plays like white noise in the background, like rainforest sound or something. But you can't leave that app, so you can't just you can't do anything.
It's actually beside your computer too to block your
I was gonna say
which sadly like is actually very helpful at times.
It's interesting about the CQE because there's actually a number of out of rotation things that you have to do in residency. All of your like TDP courses, all your practice management and all that. Try to get them done early, as soon as possible, because trying to get them done in like 3rd year or 4th year can sometimes be a little bit difficult too. But also don't overload yourself. So if you know you're on wards for year 4, don't like put everything into year 4.
Also, we don't plan those things for 2nd year.
I was just
Second year is a very busy year, so yeah, you know. And maybe one year that deserves more comment, eh? You guys, can you share some of the stuff about, about 2nd year?
The delights.
I feel like we just always hear these like second year.
I've been starting to tell people in my life that next year will be crazier, and just I don't know what that means, but just expect nothing. But it's been very helpful.
Where we're gonna
But
find out
you
what
get
that
through
something
it.
is.
It's like at the end of it, you're done, and you're like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like it's you look back and realize how tough it is, but during the time, I don't know. It
And
just
after it, it's like the smartest you feel like
Yeah,
you're
like I know so many things.
Yeah.
it's doable.
It's a tough year, but it's mostly because I think it's the most important year for self-care because you are on almost every rotation that you have is
Inpatient
service-based, 5 to 7 call. And even if you're ward senior, and I did ward senior 3 times in my 2nd year, even though you're not on call, you're just constantly, like your brain just never shuts off. And in those evenings, you still don't really feel like you have to yourself, so you have to take them for yourself in the evening. And then you really have to use those weekends to, not to like start getting mushy, but I think you have to, it's like a good time for self-reflection and figuring out what energizes you, what makes you feel good, what are you happy doing, and then really actually focusing on those things and planning those things, because it's so easy to have a weekend off and to not do anything, because like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm the kind of person that like, if I wake up in the morning and I have the weekend off, I could potentially, if I have no plans, just stay there all day. And that's not necessarily the thing that makes me the happiest. Like, I love going out for breakfast. I love cooking. I love like spending time outside. So you have to like actually think about it and work it into your schedule, because otherwise your whole year might go by and you just realize, like last year, honestly, I don't remember cooking very much at all. Like I can pick out a few times where I actually cooked a good meal. So I think that's important to actually think about it and plan for the things that you really enjoy doing, because lying around feels good sometimes, but at the end of the day, you're like, I had a whole weekend off and I didn't do anything with it, and I might not have another one for a while. So that's how I felt in 2nd year, was like I really had to pay attention to self-care, because it just gets
Well, and solidify your plans, because it's so easy to be like, oh, I'll try, like, let's try this weekend, and then you're so tired that, oh, no, we're not, like, I'd rather not. Solidify your plans, and then that way you're tied to them, and then you feel good after go. After you go and solidify.
Can you guys comment a little bit about the, how can I say, the responsibility part of second year, which I think has a
I think
different...
that's the bigger thing.
Yes, I think that has a different sort of impact on you, and the need for constantly trying to stay well. It has a lot to do with that most responsible individual.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else has answered, but
Yeah.
like I think that's maybe
One of the hardest.
like I felt like in med school you always feel like you're being evaluated by everyone. It's always like a new week, a new hospital, a new person. Like, and now you're in the programs to just like everyone's blood pressure should just go down a little. Like you're in the staff like respect you and they want to train you because they're going to work with you. So like you should all have the assurance that like everyone here trusts you and believes in you. But yeah, second year is like where you really start making big decisions. You're running teams, you're running codes, you're being involved. Like overnight, you're managing the sickest kids in the hospital. You're, deciding when to withdraw care with this, staff with the phone at their home. Like you're making, and you like go through a lot. Like I think everyone in second year will be involved in, codes or withdrawals of care or kids passing away. Like, and I think emotionally it is taxing. So you need to have people you can rely upon. And I think, that you sometimes debrief with someone and then you just feel like there's just that like nagging feeling left, and I don't think you should feel bad if you need to reach out to numerous people or like you need to debrief twice or if you need I don't know. So I think in second year like you build the framework in the first year, but then I think in the second year is when you need to rely on the framework you built on the first year in terms of like all the studying, the self-care things, and then the second year I think is a little bit of like you're not really adding as many things, you're just kind of I don't know, I think some rotations you just need to like get through that rotation, keeping up all the things you've already, like all the good habits you've already built, but it's not like let's reevaluate my whole life and the way I'm doing things. It's like, let's just survive this month and not survive, but like.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Because the nature of the job that we do is that we want to be perfect in everything that we're doing, because the consequences of not being as perfect as we can quite sometimes be quite severe, right? And so we're going to make mistakes. There's going to be the kid that you looked after that's not going to be absolutely perfect and that maybe you would do differently at another time, or that maybe you thought you should be able to manage and you're not able to manage, so you need to call for help. Those kind of things. You need to be kind to yourself and remember that, because I think that if you forget that, that's when it becomes horrible, right? Because your expectation is beyond what you can achieve. So you need to be kind to yourself as well.
And I think going into second year, everyone thinks that the expectation is there. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I went into second year thinking everyone expects me to be able to deal with everything.
You're not alone.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
you can talk to someone. Like, and I find as you get older,
thinking that I'm supposed to be able to do this now. That's why I'm a senior now. I'm supposed to be able to do this, but you're really not. And I realized last year, after having to call a couple of subspecialists at times when I really didn't want to call them, and they were totally fine with it. And sometimes that's not the case, but really everyone is honestly rather you get the help from them, and no one expects you to deal with everything on your own. No one expects that. I don't think it doesn't necessarily matter what we tell you guys, because you'll still end up feeling that way.
But you also have, we have each other.
Yes.
So you're never completely alone. Like, I've had clients where
I've called a friend at home and been like she lives in Toronto now, but like, we call each other often on call and be like, hey, what would you do? Like, she's on call. It's like chances are they're probably awake. You can, like, I was on ICU and the screener called and was like, hey, can you come look at this? Like, I really don't know. Like, there's usually someone else. There's a very rare time where you're the only person who does pediatrics in-house. Or emerge, there's an emerge.
We're always there.
Yeah.
So if you have a question about a kid on the ward or whatever you're uncertain about, you want to run it by us, we're there. Come down. There's always stuff.
And I
there.
find as I get old, like as I get older through residency, you realize that like you're not alone, and nor should you keep those things to yourself. Like sometimes it's an opinion that only a subspecialist can give, or it could go either way. But the subspecialist looking after that patient or the attending after that patient would choose something over another, and it's okay to call them and ask them. So I find even now, as I've progressed further, I actually call people more and more. So because it's going to be their opinion in the end that makes the decision.
I definitely call people more now than I used to. Yeah. And I think as you go through and you have attendings as you become closer with them and you're their senior on wards or even on a subspecialty, and they'll be talking to you about a case, and you'll realize that they're actually talking to you about it and asking you about it rather than telling you what you should be doing, and you're starting to have those conversations and realizing, oh, there's not a black and white picture to this, and even attendings are still constantly thinking about what they're doing, and there is no expectation for you to always know and always have the answer, and we definitely go into it thinking that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you probably still will have that feeling that, oh, I should be able to do this, but
But then remember this conversation.
remember.
But I think that is good calling for help. Like I remember there's a kid we had to put an IO in, right? And this person was like, why don't we just call Emerge? And then Emerge came up, and we were still the ones who put it in, but it's just nice knowing you have that senior support there, and they want you to do that, right? The emergency one came up, and they were like, sure, yeah, you guys know how to do it, you want to do it, sure, and then they help coach you through it. It was just so nice having that. And I've had several, I don't know, I had one night on call where it's just didn't get lunch till super late. Whenever another resident came by, it was Stephanie, came by, and it was it was just a bedlam day. And she came by, and then she just bought me coffee, and I think that was the best coffee I've ever had. I don't drink coffee, but that was it was just so key. And I've had, other nights where we just get slammed at Emerge with admissions, and you have a junior senior on, and they come by and they're like, how's it going? And then you'll get more of the vibes of the hospital. You'll get closer with the nurses. The nurse will be like, oh, PIC is really, really crazy right now. When you hear that, go swing by PIC and check how your PIC resident's doing, right? I've had nights where you walk by and just say I'm actually not really busy on the wards right now. If you need help or you need fluid, let me know, So I don't know, I think just you guys will rely upon each other, and you'll have those priceless moments where you're 2 o'clock, that person was there for me, so I think,
And definitely rely on each other for, we were talking about this at retreat actually, about frequent and informal debriefing, and not official debriefing, but just when you go out with each other, you're constantly going to say, let's not talk about work, let's not talk about work, but sometimes just talk about work. It doesn't have to be the medicine of work, but it can just be a situation that happened, or how you feel really terrible with this family. Just get it out. You have to keep uploading, because at the end of second year, you're just going to be I slept for 2 months straight. Honestly, I just slept.
And you realize you'll all be thinking the same things. You might think you're the only one thinking that way or feeling that way. You talk with your friend, and you're like, oh, you think like that too.
I asked you about that 6 months ago.
Yeah. Now, having said that, we have, so you guys are why do they make second year so hard? But we have actually asked the residents about their opinions about changing second year, if they feel that it's too heavy, etc. But all of them say, no, we like the way we feel when we're done. We feel so confident. We feel like we can approach almost any situation. We know what to do, at least to start the situation, etc., etc. And so everybody seems to really, really like the progression and their learning that they have, even though it is a tough year. But I think going into it knowing that it's a tough year and employing all of these strategies is really key. Okay, anything else, guys, that you wished you had known when you were first year?
I also think medicine, I don't know, kind of almost has this weird hierarchy sense to it. I remember being my first year so intimidated. Well, I was almost gonna draw an outlaw because built on the church. We're not gonna go into that. Anyways, but so I remember coming in and being so intimidated by the third years, being oh, you guys are so smart, you know what to do. It was and we all were first years, right? It was just 2 years ago, and so I don't. There is kind of a hierarchy in the sense of, I will be your guys' ward seniors and I will be teaching you guys stuff, but I'm also going to learn stuff from you guys. You guys will have done subspecialty rotations that I haven't done, allergy, and I want to learn from you guys too. And when we're in the Peds Lounge, we're all just Peds residents who want to chat and hang out, so don't get this stuff. There, I don't know, whatever there is, but there isn't. Don't be intimidated to ask for help or ask the other, I don't know. I sometimes notice, you guys walk in, we're talking, people just not talk, and they're oh, or I do that too, right? I'd come in and be oh, the third years are in the line, they can't talk now. I'm gonna leave now. Alone in the library.
Girls.
But yeah, rely upon your year, but then rely, the year 1 year above and 1 year below, you'll get really close to, because that's who you're clinically gonna interact with a lot. So yeah.
Well, Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your input. The residents always find it super helpful. Thank you.
You guys are much less scary now.
So just one last thing, you guys, I do have this in the office. It is put out by the Royal College. Derek Puttister is one of the main authors. He's a psychiatrist at CHIO. Is very into time management and strategies. And Hema Patel, who's a complex care pediatrician in Montreal, they collaborated on this book. And it has some really nice sort of strategies in terms of time management. It deals with emails. It deals with numerous things. So if you guys ever want to borrow it, just come by. You can borrow it and then just bring it back when you're done, kind of thing. So, you know, it is something that you might find useful. Awesome, and that's all I have to say. Thank you. That was helpful.
Should we open the door? Oh, yeah. The other room is now empty again. It was busy for about 2 hours today.
Are you going to stay here then? Should I open it for you?
Why don't we just open it for?
Yeah.
And you got your cake and your HJ.
I got my table. Yeah.
Good. I'm going to sleep on the other one in.
Yeah.
It's Thursday. My head is Friday.
That's really sad.
The only reason I registered for Thursday is because I'm like, wait, presentation's on Friday. That's tomorrow.
Contacted Candace for your mid-year meetings already, or?
Yeah, she sent out an email, yeah.
Yeah, the survey? Okay, okay, good.
Oh, yeah. She sent out calories.
So for the AAP, it's a
But November is like.
Yes.
but nothing's been sent to us. I didn't know Candace or and just be like, you're still open.
Yeah, just, yeah, during
But if you wait till like June, then it's going to be before that.
See, we have an hour.
The you do.
Thank you.
Whatever they call them.
She wanted to hit.
There's another way for the
Okay.
Question for y'all. Evernote, in theory, is a really nice program because you can upload pictures and screenshots and documents and whatever. But do any of you have good tricks or tips on, like, I'm a writer, I tend to learn by writing, but that doesn't help when I'm on awards or anywhere, and I don't obviously carry all my